General Assembly. We had a long day, but we've got a fantastic presentation for you this evening. And we hold our voices down in the main room. It'll be a little bit easier on the recording and on the presentation. The doors in the back are open because we do have people that are still joining us. So there's a little bit of noise from the back, but hopefully here up front, it's nice and quiet. First of all, we want to welcome our attendees, those that are live and those that are virtual. A big shout out to our virtual attendees this year in general. The web host is going to provide some instruction for our virtual guests so that they know how to ask questions and participate during the presentation. But for everybody else, we get to enjoy this in person. I wanted to start by saying tonight we're having a panel discussion, which is a little bit different than our usual format. But the reason why we have these guests is to learn a little bit more about strengthening the profession and your practice using clinical standards of practice for acupuncture and herbal medicine. The panel has many years of experience and commitment dedicated to expanding patient access to Asian medicine throughout the U.S. and making it easier for tens of thousands of acupuncturists, doctors of oriental medicine to build stronger, healthier practices and businesses. They're able to thrive and meet the needs of their community. So as the healthcare landscape is always changing, it's important that we understand that our medicine, your practice, and future generations of providers depend on our ability to learn and adapt and embrace change. Change is inevitable, and if we remain stagnant and resistant to change, it's to our own detriment and that of our patients. So tonight, we're going to educate and help all of us continue to serve our patients and follow our passions. So with that, please stand for a second. Let's introduce our panel. Come on, everybody, they deserve a stand. They've spent years, thousands of dollars, thousands of hours. Shout it out for Marilyn Allen from AAC, Nina Larson from NCCAOM, Michael Taramina, and Mel is going to join us as well. We have opportunity for comments and discussion with this evening's presentation. Go ahead and have a seat and relax. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Nell. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Nell Smersina. I wear a ton of hats, but tonight, just like you, I am a practitioner. And so what is my role for this evening? Two really important things that kind of go together. Make sure that we have as much value in this presentation as possible and keep us on track. So those of you who have worked with me before know I love to manage expectations from the beginning. So what does that look like? This first hour, we're going to have a lively panel discussion that Michael Taramina will be leading. And these two women here who really don't need an introduction in this profession, Marilyn Allen and Nina Larson. So you'll get a ton of value. That second hour, we want to be really collaborative, very discussion-based. Thank you to those of you who sent your questions in ahead of time. We've incorporated as much as possible into the current presentation. For things that come up during, you all have an index card and a pen. Please feel free to write down questions. We have Rosie. Rosie, can you stand up or raise your hand? Okay. And Chris as well. They'll be coming around if you have an index card and they will get it to me. Some forewarning. Because we only have 2 hours together, let's try to keep questions relevant for most of the room. Poor Michael here will probably be stalked by a lot of us for free legal advice this weekend. So if we can keep the purposes of this discussion on track, I will help do that as well. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Michael Taramina.
You know, when you start with an ovation, you can only go downhill. So I need you to severely lower your expectations for this evening. The reason why I'm here, these two women up here, they're the ones I listen to. I was telling them this morning, I was home on my couch. And Marilyn calls me and tells me I have to get my ass to Orlando to come speak to you. And she's like, I need you to be a lawyer. So I'm going to be a lawyer, like she asked, and you're going to be the jury. So I'm going to give you an opening argument on behalf of your profession that I would give to people who have nothing to do or have no understanding of your profession, but you do, so I can go in a little more detail with it. And then you can render a verdict at the end of the evening about where it stands and your understanding of where things need to go. So let's go through a little bit of history, a little bit of current affairs, and a little bit about what the future brings. The United States spends 1 out of every $5 on healthcare. That's way more than any other nation, and it's more each day. Why do we rank at the bottom of industrialized nations in amendable mortality rates? Amendable mortality, for those of you who don't know, is defined as deaths before the age of 75 that are preventable from timely and effective healthcare. So we spend more per capita by a mile than any other country. We proudly boast of the highest quality healthcare in the world, yet we rank at the bottom among our peer nations in preventing untimely deaths. Reconcile that for me. Reconcile the boasting we do. Reconcile the money we spend with the outcomes we get. You can't. This is an indictment on the timeliness and effectiveness of the American healthcare approach. Our approach in this country is catastrophically reactive. It's fundamentally designed to address the costliest side of care for the consumer, and coincidentally, the most profitable for the deliverer, and that is treating disease and illness. It is not, I repeat, it is not focused on routine preventative care. That's not where we spend our money. And that's exactly where you excel. And that is well before medical conditions become more serious, more complicated, more expensive to deal with. Ask yourselves this: when do foreigners, wealthy foreigners, when do they come to access our healthcare system? When they're sick. Because we offer, particularly when they're gravely ill, because we offer the best sick care in the world. So don't be fooled by your politicians. They can pass laws all day, cutting administrative expenses, implementing price controls, eliminating waste and fraud, and yes, even insure every American. But unless and until we redesign our approach to improving health and wellness and preventing chronic disease and illness, we will continue to spend far too much, far too late, with no end in sight. There are some better solutions, real solutions. Dozens of those solutions are in this room. Perhaps dozens more are listening in. The solutions are you. You, each one of you, offers this state, this nation, a timely and effective healthcare approach. Here's some facts. Your medicine has been scrutinized more than any other complementary medicine. It enjoys the most credibility within the medical community and the most popularity worldwide. That's not my opinion. That's the position of the NIH. The position of the WHO, as you all fully know, recognizes your medicine for treatments of a wide array of ailments. But of particular note is its effectiveness in dealing with conditions related to pain, tension, stress, and emotional conditions, which in turn, folks, mitigates and prevents more complicated, complex, expensive illness. Millions of Americans now turn to your medicine every year. Not all of them to you. They turn to your medicine, but when they turn to you, they are forced to pay out of pocket for their care, which means this: despite your demand, despite the effectiveness, your medicine is largely inaccessible to the populations in this country that need you the most. You know who they are. They're low-income communities and families. They're fixed-income seniors, and I would add, they are also veterans. We desperately need you to be intervening with them. When you look at the data, it's not only economically irresponsible, it is, in my opinion, morally irresponsible to shut you out from the poorest, most vulnerable populations that we have. And your best argument, and will always be your best argument, is savings. I'll give you 2 points on savings. Number one, when we add your profession to the healthcare equation, we not only instantly reduce the primary care providers shortages that we have in this country, which we desperately need, is more primary care providers. How many more do I have for them? Tens of thousands like that. We can eliminate that shortage with tens of thousands of people like that. But not only that, perhaps more importantly, and you know this from your practices better than me, we reduce the inevitability of the most expensive components of the healthcare system. Do you know what they are? I think you do. Hospitalizations. You're wording their mouths. You do know what they are. Invasive surgeries. And the granddaddy of them all? Right. Prescriptive medications. Let me reiterate this. If we take you off the margins, take you out of the sidelines, and put you into the healthcare system in this country, we will cut down on the amount of days people spend in the hospital. We will cut down on the amount of times we cut people open. We will cut down on the amount of pills they need to take. How much savings is that? At least hundreds of millions, if not billions, every single year by adding you to the healthcare equation, adding you, subtracting costs. How much? Well, in this state, $250 million will be spent this year on prescriptive medications. By the way, there are more prescriptions in Florida than there are human beings. The population of this state is booming. You know what's booming even faster? The amount of prescriptions. You see, from my standpoint, how desperately we need you activated and engaged to bring your medicine included to the equation. Your medicine has the best argument for inclusion of all the professions not included, by far. You stand ready, instantly ready, to offer potential solutions to healthcare prices and crisis. But you also stand in the way of achieving it. You are the #1 obstacle from achieving everything I just begged you to desperately do. Again, despite your proven demand, effectiveness, affordability, and safety record for decades now, your medicine is not legislatively secure throughout this country. It doesn't even exist in a few states as a profession. Still, this state, which is a great market and a great statute, I got news for you. You're not legislatively secure here either. Meanwhile, other medical professions, and you know this as well, for over a decade have successfully targeted and appropriated your domain and parts of your scope of practice. And what that has resulted in is exactly what I predicted it would result in. When? 2009, you were there. I said exactly what is happening now would happen. It's what I feared would happen, but it's happening. And what's happening is your medicine is growing rapidly in some cases throughout this country, and your profession is shrinking. Medicine is going up, profession is going down. And the better organized, better funded, better focused professionals have, let's be honest, taken advantage of your disunity and disagreements, and they are in oftentimes rooms passing their own self-serving regulations and rules, entitling them to do exactly what you do, and they don't even call it a different name anymore. They don't even have to. That is not the worst part. I don't have a problem with them trying to do what you do. The most damaging part, and by the way, we can't stop them. That is my legal opinion. You cannot stop that. But it's not the most damaging part. The most damaging part is that by virtue of their status in the medical system, they are in many cases oftentimes entitled to automatic reimbursement for their services while you're not. That's the most damaging part. Folks, if there was parity, and when I mean parity, I mean equity. I mean equitable reimbursement and access. That was the case out there. Your profession would be booming. I wouldn't be here. I'd be on my couch. I'd be happy as I'm back on my couch. My work would be done. You wouldn't need me. You know why? You would still be here. You would be here. Do you know what the discussion would be tonight? This would be the discussion tonight. How in the hell are we going to handle the tens of millions of more in patient demand that we're now faced with? Do you realize there wouldn't be enough of you to fill the jobs or handle the patients? But the playing field is not fair. So other professions, less trained, less qualified, less effective, are acquiring the market you created. David, you mentioned this last night in the board meeting. I'm not sure they understand what's been accomplished behind you. And a lot of you, some of you were there, I know. This bothers me personally so much. Not because I'm a practitioner, no. Because I was there on the legislative front as a young attorney, handsome, charming. You should have seen me. Dynamic. And that's 30 years ago, by the way. Those other medical professions were lined up against you. They lobbied hard in opposition to the enabling legislation that created your existence in the states. They didn't want you to be born. And they used arguments, and these will sound familiar, right, Amy? Right, David? You were unsafe. You were unsubstantiated. You're unproven. You're not evidence-based. Remember those? I heard this morning someone said they called you voodoo. You know what they called you to me? Witchcraft. Witchcraft. And now they're out there passing their self-serving administrative regulations to be witches. I wish they were here. What happened to all the witchcraft? Where did it go? So they're acquiring the patients now. You started it. You started the market. You started it. They joined the party. They've taken it from here, though, because you're lazy, disorganized, and fighting with each other. They got it all together. By the way, they don't like each other any more than you do. They don't like trust me, they don't like each other. That's them. Right there. Reminding you. Booming out there. They are acquiring the patients you deserve. Scratch that. Scratch that. Let me rephrase it. They are requiring the patients that deserve you, or at minimum, the option of you. They're the victims here, not you. You could find another job, and you might very well have to. They can't find another practitioner like you. They will be sick and suffering. You want to know who they are? I'm going to tell you who they are. They are all over your class schedule this weekend. I looked at it, they're there. They're who I'm advocating for. They're people sick and suffering from long COVID. There are people struggling with the hell and horrors of addiction. They are people dealing with side effects from other therapies. They're people with digestive, respiratory, skin disorders. They are folks who are anxious, stressed, depressed. They are people who are struggling with the number one reason for medical intervention on the planet. What is it? Pain, 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 pain. Listen to me carefully. It also happens to be, oh, by the way, the number one proven efficacy that you are recognized for in this country as a profession. And they're getting gobbled up. Do you realize how impossible it seemed to me that you would get legislation passed back when you did, and then to be able to build a market? Do you understand that you created this market from nothing, despite impossible odds and their direct opposition in many cases to your existence? Do you know what it took to create a market for your ancient medicine in modern America out of nothing? Folks, I am not overstating the case. That accomplishment was nothing short of a medical miracle. The miracle is over because you are losing out to the other professions who have joined your miracle. You can stop it, you can change it, you can resolve it, you can address it. It's all there in front of you. You know what else you're fortunate about? This isn't 40 years ago when Marilyn first got involved. This isn't 30 years ago when I first got involved. It's not 20 years ago when Mina first involved. You're lucky. The stars are aligned for you. Unlike then, we don't need another miracle to get this done. The data is there. The demand is there. How about this? The politics is there. Never in the history of the world has there been more people searching for alternatives through the tragedy we've lived through than right now. Never has there ever been a pandemic or a crisis where you are more desperately needed in this country than right now. It only takes one thing from you, because you have the resources, you have the infrastructure. It's all there. It's right in front of you right now. Right now. Tomorrow? No. Today, it's there. All you have to do is work together. That's it. Work together. And all of it can get done. You want the motivation? Use mine. Why I'm here. The millions of people who desperately need your healing surfaces. If that doesn't motivate you, you can't be motivated, because they can't find you right now, they can't access you right now, and they certainly can't afford you right now. You can change it. They can't. They'll help. They'll be a huge help. But you have to do this. This is your profession. This is your responsibility to protect it, to secure it. Take it off the trajectory of leading towards extinction that you are on and reverse it now. I promise you, you can set this profession up to endure for generations to come, and tens of millions of people will benefit from it. Marilyn, Alan, you know this better than me. How long do they have not working together?
I'm almost afraid to say this, but if we continue this downward slide and the other groups continue to grow, not only in numbers, but in their ability, probably 3, 5, maybe a few more years. I've been to Washington, D.C. twice in the last 6 months. I have worked with your lobbyists there. I've talked to people. Congress wants your medicine. CMS wants your medicine. They don't care who holds the needle. They don't know anything about your medicine. They think you go to school 3 months. I want to ask somebody in this room, how many hours did you go to school? 3,500, 3,000. How many of you in this room have educated your patient with just one soundbite of how many hours you go to school? Quite a few. You're the first piece in a public relations campaign. I got to thinking about, and I've heard all over the United States, and I get calls almost every day, oh, we don't have any standards. We don't have any standards. Well, I've done a great deal of study on it. I've given you a little sheet. Okay. I'm going to start with the international standards. Whether you agree with all the things that WHO is doing, or whether you like what they're doing or you don't like what they're doing, they have provided a number of international standards. In 2007, they standardized point location, 361 points. Why is that important? Because if we're going to do research, everybody has to use the same points. 2008, they standardized 4,000 vocabulary terms. In 2020, they wrote a short booklet about 12 pages on what the basic educational standards should be. In the year 2022, and if I'm correct, that's this year, February 1st, they released to the general public worldwide a set of diagnostic codes for you. Now, if I was to ask you, why do we use diagnostic codes? The majority of you would say for billing insurance. We're the only country in the world that uses the codes for billing insurance. Okay, we have a unique standard there. These codes are used basically for counting. They count mortality. Every country in the world has to report to WHO monthly as well as annually how many people died of what diagnosis. Number two, they have released for you standards of things to use. If we cannot count traditional medicine, and that means simply 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we can't count mortality and we can't count morbidity with using traditional medicine diagnosis, we don't count, we don't matter. WHO found in 2012 and 2016, they did surveys. 2012, they found out that 82% of the world's population, the world, uses some form of traditional medicine. By 2016, they had figured out what was the #1 type of traditional medicine they use. Say it. Acupuncture. Herbs is #5 around the world, and #9 is TCM. Think about that. So who do we have to educate to help us to become legislative sure? Exactly. Thank you. I don't know how many legislators there are here in Florida. 209. How many acupuncturists are there in Florida? 4 to 4,500. Can somebody do that math on the phone? How many acupuncturists are there for every legislator? There's inactive and active puncture, so you have to separate that out. All right, we have a Medicare bill. Everybody know about that? HR 4803. Who has to vote on that? What legislators? Federal. How many of them are there? 5. I think it's 534 at this point. Okay. I think Florida's going to gain one. California's going to lose one. Okay. How many acupuncturists are there in the United States? Not quite that many that are active. We lost some during the pandemic, maybe 35, 36,000. Think about those numbers. You only have to look at 4 people. 1, you have to look who is your state assembly person in your district. You should be able to find out. You can type in your zip codes in your computer. You can look at the signs that are going to be along the street. Now is the time. There is no better time right now to do this. Why? We have a national election in November. So who is your state assembly person? Next, who is your state senator? Then you want to find out who your federal congressperson is and who is your federal senator. There are only 2 federal senators in each state. Can somebody tell me who they are in Florida? Okay. Now, this is what I'm going to challenge you to do. I'm going to challenge you to make at least 4 phone calls, possibly 6. You're going to figure out who's running on the Democratic ticket and who's running on the Republican ticket. There will be 2 people running for each office. Doesn't make any difference when you play in the camp of the donkeys, play in the camp of the elephants, whether you are a green person, a peace person, an independent person. You have to figure out how these people stand and their knowledge of your medicine. So when you call their office, their campaign office, you'll probably get something like this. Oh, well, we'll call you back. We'll have to ask the member. We don't really know. What does that tell you you need to do immediately? You need to start talking to them. You need to educate two people, not only the member, but you have to educate the person who's in charge of their health bills. Now, we've given you a sheet. It's colored. We put it on one sheet. These are the standards that we have. First of all, most of them have no idea that you now have an international recognition foundation for your medicine. That's what came from WHO. That's what the codes are. Okay. You don't have to explain what the codes are. Just tell them we are internationally recognized. Okay. We have a foundation. Number two, you have ACOM. ACOM is recognized by the United States Department of Education. Their job is to be sure that the schools are in compliance with those. And you can look at ACOM's website. I downloaded it all. They have 15 pages of national compliance, which they have to pass on to the schools. I wrote some of them down on this paper. The next one is the Council of Colleges. Every one of you has done and taken and comply with what? Clean needle technique. Clean needle technique is based on the standards from the CDC. They're based on standards from OSHA, right? We have a new standard from FDA, which is called CGMP, which you became compliant with in 2010. That covers your herbs. Okay. February 28th to March 1st of 2022, there was an international conference held of experts in conjunction with WHO. For 3 days, they discussed the effect and the use of traditional medicine, including acupuncture and herbs for the treatment of COVID and for the vaccination. Those results have not been released yet because they're still under study and research, but there is discussion everywhere. The next one is NCCAOM. NCCAOM is accredited by a government agency, which accredits all certification commissions. They give a national test. The national test is based on what you do, not necessarily what's all taught in schools. That's why you fill out the things for the job task analysis. Does that make sense? So I want you to take this sheet, think about it, put your knowledge into it, and use it as a guide when you start to talk to your legislators. We have a group in Arizona that meets once a month. And since January, they have brought in the candidates. And I remember going up to one of the candidates and I said to him, point blank, when you're elected, what would your position be on acupuncture? And I didn't know him, but I work in your profession. And he said to me, I told him about Medicare. And he said, well, they're doctors. Why aren't they in Medicare? Of course I would support that. You want to know who's going to represent you, who's going to support your medicine. That's more important than anything else you can do. And it is a urgent request. Call their offices, go in and work for them. I addressed 500 postcards not too long ago for one of the senator candidates in Arizona who believes in healthcare freedom. We have to work both sides of the aisle because we don't know who's going to get elected. You may have your favorite of who you vote for, but go in and remember, you'll meet people there who are potential acupuncture patients. If you can't afford to give a lot of money, and we don't, so we need a grassroots movement, go to one of their fundraisers, volunteer, because everybody who can pay anywhere from $250 a plate to $1,000 a plate can afford your medicine. can afford your treatments. You might come out with a patient. Who knows? They don't know who you are. They don't know what you do. So
Nina, aside from NCCOM being part of the standards of the practice, tell me what role it plays in helping reverse this professional crisis that we are under right now.
One of the most important roles that the NCCM plays, besides creating the NCCM exams for competency, is that it provides a safety guideline and a safety net that the government and state regulatory boards and the federal government can rely on. Without the requirements of the NCCM examinations, without the work of our subject matter experts that create the examination, without the work of Michael Taramina, the chair of our ethics committee, who constantly is working with our ethics committee. We have some members here right now, ensuring that we are monitoring the safe practice of acupuncture herbal medicine. We wouldn't be a practice today. Right now, as Michael and Marilyn said, it's the most pivotal time for us to really rely on those standards. This year is our 40th anniversary. The NCCOM, ACOM, the Council of Colleges got together back in 1982 to develop those standards, to put together a reliance, a partnership with state regulatory boards. Back in the 70s, people were getting arrested for practicing acupuncture. Some of you might have been there for that. So what the profession decided to do is to start a body for certification, a body for education and accreditation, a body for membership, and then a body to represent the schools. So the profession started the very difficult task of establishing relationships with states, 50 states. And that work started in the 70s, and throughout the 80s and 90s, it progressed. Right now, we have 47 states that have a practice act, which is wonderful, but we still have 3 states that are unregulated. Does anybody know which states? Alabama. Nope. South Dakota. Third one, Oklahoma. Those 3 states are still unregulated, which means a lot of wonderful practitioners practicing there, but the government doesn't recognize the practice of acupuncture in this day in 2022. It's a tragedy. So what do? We have to continue to work together. We have to continue to take information about national standards that these state regulatory boards rely on to make sure that every single state has regulation. The wonderful aspect about our profession, the diversity of our profession, is we have many, many scopes. In some states, we have the herbal practice, like in Florida. Some states, we have a very expanded scope, like in New Mexico. But the common denominator, the commonality between each of these states is the NCCOM. Now, there are states that are unregulated, and then there's also the state of California, which is a whole nother discussion. But the NCCOM is what the state boards all require in order to meet competency. It's not just the examination. As you know, there's a lot of work created for the examination. Marilyn Allen mentioned the job analysis, which is the nationwide survey that we send out every 5 years to all of you. When you all receive it, we're going to start that next year. Every single one of you should participate. We ask you information about demographics, how you practice, your style of practice. That job analysis is very, very important in terms of what a certification exam encompasses, because that job analysis results in the blueprint of the NCCM exams, which are the content outlines. For those of you who teach, I really recommend that you educate your students about that. I get calls all the time. Well, I'm an A+ student and I failed your exam. Why? Well, did you look at our exam content outline? No. What is that? Well, that's why you failed. That's where the domain, and that's where each of the 4 examination and domain and information and references are located. Why does the NCCM bother to do a job analysis versus just go from school to school to school? Because a certification program requires that we test and assess to what's being practiced today, not what all the schools are teaching. That's very, very important for all of you to understand that. So that work is done by the NCCM every 5 years, where we update the content outlines and make sure that it's disseminated at least 2 years so that all the students can become familiar with it. So that process, along with a nationally accredited program, as Marilyn mentioned, the NCCA, the National Commission for Certifying Agencies, which is a quasi-government organization that accredits our examination, is required by the states. That's actually in the statute. You will see that. So that is what state agencies really rely on in order to make sure that each of their licensees, applicants for licensees, have met competency. The other important part of that is the NCCM Code of Ethics and our whole process that we have to ensure that every single practitioner that's NCCM nationally board certified has met standards and has ensured that they have not violated our grounds for professional discipline. Michael here is the chair of our Professional Ethics and Discipline Committee. So we all understand that every single state has different practice acts, and there's some compliance within each of those states. But what the NCCM does is they make sure that they communicate with each of those states to ensure that if someone has violated the code of ethics, and our PEDC committee has reviewed and each case and has sanctioned them, that information is shared with these regulatory boards. In states like Virginia that require full certification, this really is that benefit is even increased, because if someone has violated the code of ethics in another state and moves to Virginia, that information is shared with that board. So that person is prevented from being able to practice in that state. That information is shared by the NCCM to that state. If you have a state like New York, where only 2 exams are practiced, someone can go from one state to New York and they're not detected. So when we talk about maintenance of certification, ensuring that someone is certified, that's an important part of the NCCM process. So again, NCCM is not just a certifying body. We also work with state regulatory boards to make sure that practitioners are safe, and any type of whether it's fraud or criminal conviction or negligence is investigated and reported to that state, and vice versa. That's an important part of what we do. So one of the important work of the Professional Ethics and Discipline Committee is every several years, we really review the code of ethics, the grounds for professional discipline, and to ensure that it's updated and it's modernized. So one of the important concepts that we did this last year was that Michael and the Ethics Committee reviewed the code, and we wanted to make sure that the code covered every aspect of the profession. Diplomats, when they sign the recertification application, they make sure that they report any type of, whether it's a civil lawsuit, criminal activity, to us, as part of their recertification process. Applicants, the same thing, as well as PDA providers. But we really thought about this, and we realized, what about schools? What about schools and faculty members and others? Is there an accountability for that? So one of the wonderful work that Michael and the Ethics Committee did is that they added the language in the code and in the grounds to be able to make sure that if there is a violation or potential violation, that the PEDC has jurisdiction to be able to look at that. So this was a very important work of the PEDC, as well as being able to provide that information to the our stakeholders, our diplomats, our schools, to be able to provide public comment. We received those public comments, and we were able to go ahead and review them and further update the code. So I want to go ahead and right now take the time to really showcase the unveiling. So I'm going to turn it over to Nell.
Yeah, while you're doing that, she's unveiling the code work we've done. If you want to learn about compliance with ethics, you go see the expert here. My resident expert, Amy Sear, will be teaching a class tomorrow. If you get in trouble, I am not
Michael, I'm
representing you.
5'2". I might need your
So-
help.
I do want to say one thing that I think some people misunderstand. The NCCAOM serves all the purposes that Mina says, but it cannot lobby for you. It cannot do a campaign to change anything. It can give legislative testimony if it's invited in. That job is to your membership association, and I'm going to bring Nell in on that. But I want to, Mina said one thing that makes you feel all nice, the diversity of your medicine. It makes me cringe. It makes me cringe. It is your biggest problem. I can drive this room crazy. I can drive any room of acupuncturists crazy by asking one simple question. What is the name of your medicine? Yeah. I could leave, I'll come back at the end of the conference, and you will still be fighting with each other over it. Western medicine does not have that problem. That is unique to you. Is it your fault? See, it started. Well, let's put it this way. We have to deal with it. And it has to do with the evolution. The codification of your medicine is totally different than the history of Western medicine. No one asks what a podiatrist does in Illinois as opposed to Manhattan. No one asks that, right? So, but in your case, things are different. And that's why things like codes and standards are so important. And Maryland's roadmap to focusing on the standards is critical to me. Because if we cannot get on the same page in terms of standards, we're not advocating for the same thing. We can't even get on the same page to advocate for, right? So you have different, because your medicine grew state by state in grassroots effort. And in some cases, remarkably, one person got a bill passed in several states. You know, one person is responsible for passing a bill. There's no model acupuncture statute. The best statute in the country right now is the result of the work that Marilyn and Nell did in Arizona. It blew me away. It put wind in my sails to come down here and talk to you folks about how valuable the timing is. Because for years and years and years, you have to face the battle of different scopes, different standards, every state you go to. It's a major challenge for credentialing, a major challenge for insurance, a major challenge for complying with a code of ethics. It's an uphill battle for your medicine. But federal legislation, the federal Medicare bill that potentially includes you, is how thick is that, Marilyn? How big is that bill?
There's 80 million seniors in this country today. It's not about you. It's about access for them. And people keep saying, well, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Okay, opt out of Medicare. You can have your choice on that, but you have to be able to give access to those people. It's 25% of our population.
Now, the infrastructure I refer to is your membership organizations. And in some states, there's a membership organization for every active practitioner. I don't care. I don't care how many organizations there are. You do have an infrastructure to pass federal legislation where you can increase the amount of patients. How many do you treat right now in this country? And it's a guesstimate, actually. How many do you think you touch right now? What's your reach? What's your reach? Maximum reach ever. Maybe you've treated 5 million people in this country. How many are there?
300.
Right. There's 50 million available in the legislative halls. You want to graduate 6,000 students, which will graduate, put them in the marketplace like you, and have them open up small businesses in healthcare, the most complicated, complex, regulated business in the world, under an enormous amount of student debt, and ask them to build their market too? Why everybody else is trespassing on your medicine and stomping on them? They can't do it. They need jobs. They are healers. They are not business people. If they were business people, they wouldn't be healers. They would be in law school with me, who are okay with confrontation. You can't handle it. That's why you don't get along. You're healers. Confrontation drives you crazy. That's a day in the office for me. And then we go for steaks. You have mortal enemies because you have different schools of thought about your medicine. Meanwhile, 80 million seniors who are dying to see you and help you and lobby for you actually get you under their services. They're calling your offices thinking they're covered, and they're not. So now what is in place infrastructure-wise to get this bill passed? Jen, if you want to join in on that too.
So yes, in many states, we have a variety of state associations coming from California. I can speak to that. We have the ASA. The ASA was built bottom up. I serve on the board. It is not about the board. It's about the state associations. That's the infrastructure that wields the power, that gets to voice an opinion, that has a seat at the table to say how we're going to move forward. I want to bring a case study up to Michael's point that he's been making. I served as the president of FSOMA in California, and then I moved to Arizona. When I came to Arizona, there was a bill that was moving very quietly, thanks to one acupuncturist, Lloyd Wright, the president of the Arizona Association, who went to one fundraiser and made a connection with a legislator who believed in freedom of healthcare, who believed that patients should have access. At these committee hearings to get this bill through, where we had not a single no vote, the only licensed acupuncturists who were there were Lloyd and myself. Contrast that to California, when we had a bill to bring NCCAOM in to, and I've taken Kale and I've taken NCCAOM. So let's talk about it. That bill was killed because of our profession. PTs signed on, MDs were on board, chiros.
Wait,
were
I
on
thought
board.
they were your enemies.
No,
Oh,
we had meetings with them. They signed on as supporters of the bill. Our champion got spooked because of licensed practitioners in her district who she thought she was doing a favor for. School that she thought she was helping to bring jobs to, so that they didn't have to be sole proprietors. So there could be a national standard. So we wouldn't get left out of conversations down the road. So it was us who did this. So now the infrastructure we have, you have your state association. I love being here in Florida because you all are involved, you're strong, you are organized. These people right here, I have to thank for that. Jen could make me cry. I have worked with her for a few years, and die-hard advocate. And so this is the structure that we have. But that case study cannot show you more what we're up against in our own profession.
Marilyn, give me an overview of the student population, where it was, where it is, and where it's going.
In 2019, the schools had enrolled 8,000 students. In 2022, we have 6,200 students enrolled. That is a drop of 25%.
It's partially due to COVID though, because I teach in school, to be honest.
I could also add another stat to this. So when I started with the NCCM in 2003, we had about 1,200 to 1,400 applications a year. Now, to take the examination, now we have about 700 to 800. COVID is impacting that, but it's also that we're not doing enough to recruit students into the schools. Well, what are we going to do to make sure that our profession is attractive to potential applicants? What are we going to do to promote and do a public education campaign to the public, through the media, through other healthcare practitioners? Are we taking the time to use Acupuncture Medicine Day to highlight our practice? Yep. See, God's speaking to us right now. So anyway, so what are we doing to promote ourselves? What are we taking the time to introduce ourselves? As Marilyn said this morning, are we going out and to the building and giving our? So this is something that I think each of us have to do. Public education means all of us have to be involved. We talked about advocacy and grassroots. Public education can also be grassroots. I'm calling your local radio station. A lot of TV stations, radio stations have free PSA announcements. You can talk about what you do, doing demonstrations at the state capitol. All of this is to promote our medicine. Michael talked about how do we really highlight and showcase what we do versus what PTs and chiros and nurses do. The best way to do that, one of the best ways is public education, to let the patients know that we have the most qualified, we're the most qualified. Our education, our clinical hours, our examination, our board certification is higher than them. One of my biggest pet peeves is when I'm looking at a lot of you and I see your business cards, I don't see your NCSIM certification on there. And I'm like, well, are you NCSIM certified? Yes, I've been NCSIM certified for 40 years. And why aren't you using your national board certification? Why aren't you putting your certificate on your wall? Why aren't you using the little cards that we gave you to showcase, your certification? We have pins, we have all sorts of information that our booth has where you can promote board certification. Look at what MDs do. Be proud of that. Use that to promote national standards. The federal government, Marilyn and I have visited many federal agencies. We've met with CMS. We've met with NIH. We sat across from Helene Langenstein, who is the director of the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health underneath the NIH. We've met with her and we've talked to her about making sure that there's enough research funds and PR, public education, for our medicine. And first thing she asked is, what are the qualifications and educational standards for your practitioners? Same thing with FDA. We've met with the FDA and they want to know, what are the qualifications for our practitioners to be able to practice Chinese herbal medicine? And then I see individuals who say, well, I don't value the certification examination. Well, then, and I'm going to say, I'm going to say, not if, but when the FDA decides that they're going to come and crack down on the practice of Chinese herbal medicine, what is it that's going to be able to save us? Certification. We are qualified. We have all this education towards the practice of Chinese herbal medicine, and we hold a certification in Chinese herbal medicine. So this is one of the biggest problems that I see with many of our practitioners. They don't understand or hold value to certification. And this is one of our biggest tools to fight against others that are practicing this medicine, because we have the highest education. We are the most qualified, and we need to use these as a tool to be able to get more patients and to promote ourselves.
You have the highest rate of customer satisfaction in medicine, the highest rate of loyalty in medicine. I mean, none of you made it because you put billboards up. None of you made it because of your website. None of you. How many students are here? Okay, it's a few. For you successful practitioners, and I know some of you are very successful, if I took away all your patients and your experience since you left school and dropped you in the marketplace now, you think you could replicate what you did? Maybe, yes. Some people no. How about I gave you $100,000 in debt to go with it? Yeah. So that's what they're going to be facing, because they don't need to be facing it, because there'll be more jobs available than there will be graduating students if you work on federal legislation. All the other issues, and there are dozens and dozens of issues. David has a number of issues in Florida you can discuss and talk about all you want. None of it is going to matter. This code, that's not going to matter. I wrote it. And you know what I was thinking? Doesn't apply to Starbucks employees. And it won't. We can have the best, most ethical profession with no professionals at this rate. So there are ways to get involved. There are very simple ways to get involved. I'm going to have Jennifer tell you that, and then I'm going to open the floor for your quick comments or questions, and we can start with whatever's coming in online or any topics you want us to address while we're here. And if we let's just keep it moving as fast as we can to cover as much ground as we can. Hold your comments and questions to a sentence or two. Jennifer, she needs the mic.
Thanks so much, guys. Hi. I'm going to give a tiny little bit of a summary before I move on to exactly how you can get involved. I want to let you know licensed medical professions have a few things in common. Each and every single one of them has an accreditation body. Each and every single one of them has a certification body, and each and every single one of them has a licensing body. So we need all of those. We have all of those. So we are a licensed health profession. Now, that's important too, because our state laws determine our practices, but our federal laws determine our profession. That really gives us that professional identity. And so what they're mentioning with Medicare is huge, because that is our federal footprint, and that's who we can really start to be. And then that allows us to take on that responsibility that Michael spoke of, and that right, which is we get to define who we are, and we get to put that out there. And it is our responsibility, and it is our right. And it's going to be our honor too, to be able to do that. So what we ask of you is that you get involved. And there's so many ways you can do that. So I am the chair for the ASA's advocacy committee. And what we have done is tried to set up an infrastructure to be able to communicate with you so that you understand what's happening. We have so many ways we're doing that. We have monthly articles on Acupuncture Today. We have websites that have all of our fact sheets available there, all of our talking points available there. Because when you're out speaking with your legislators, this is federal. So you can't just go in as Florida acupuncture physician. We need to go in with talking points that work for all of us to an extent, and with national information. So we've got that ready for you. If you go on, you'll be able to find all of that at asacu.org or nccom.org. You can sign up for our newsletters. You can see recordings of our town halls. You can hear from all sorts of other people how and why we came to this decision and what we're doing to try to pursue it even further. We also have an online free legislative tool, and that is Capital Canary. And it is a way that you, and as they were saying, we have about 37,000 maybe licensed acupuncturists in the United States, but we have so many more patients, and our patients love this medicine even more than we do. And those are the ones whose voice needs to be heard. So Capital Canary is something that you can use, your patients can use, your family and friends can use to get templated letters sent out to any of their specific legislators. If you want to take it further, then you contact me at advocacy@asacu.org and tell me you want to get involved, and I will absolutely make sure we get you involved. We have patient testimonial letters you can write. We have so many different ways that you can get involved, but we need you, and we need your patience, because without it, it's going to be really tough for us to have a future. There is no doubt that the public wants acupuncture. It's happening. It's coming. The only question is, are we going to be the ones performing it, right? And right now, Medicare, CMS, it pays for acupuncture. It doesn't pay for us. We got to switch that. Thanks, guys.
So one of the questions that come in, thank you, Jennifer. One of the questions that came in, Marilyn, is a very important point. I'm going to assume that we go into hyperdrive in terms of working together to get the pie increased, because that's exactly what we need to do, is increase the pie and define ourselves before others define it for us. Outside of that assumption of doing that, the fuel for that engine is research. That is the fuel that will take us anywhere we need to go. And I'd like Marilyn to address that before we open it up to the audience.
Okay. How many of you remember when we raised $300,000 from the United States to give to WHO so United States would be included? Okay. We raised the $300,000. I have been looking at research, bona fide research that we can come out and have a win on. The approximate cost for that of a study of approximately 100 patients will be between $400,000 and $500,000. My goal is to raise $500,000 for research in this community with a project that will actually give us credibility. I already have $25,000 in the bank. I have had 2 people come to me today, and between those 2 people, we have raised $1,800. If you are interested, I'm not putting any pressure on you. We take any amount, okay? But if you are interested in being part of this, whether you want to collect data, because we don't have data. If you want to collect data, we'll be more than happy to tell you how to do that. If you want to give money, I'll be happy to even accept $1. It will be stored in COMRI, which is a consortium for early medicine research and education, a 501c3 that the American Acupuncture Council established almost 20 years ago. That's where we stored the 300,000. That's where we'll store the 500,000. So I'll be happy to accept any donations, and that's what we have to have. It's an expensive project. It's a big project, and we are working with the European Traditional Medicine Association and Australia. We're going to need to learn to do the codes, and our goal out of raising enough money by teaching the codes and donations will be to fund research. And out of that, we hope to have a public relations campaign to tell people in the world that we are here.
It is, give me 1 second. It is important to note of being here in Florida. It is one of the most important states for all of this to happen in. And I want David to share some of his thoughts. He knows why it's so important. And for his association, the responsibility that his association has, as Florida goes, the nation goes. That's why it's very apropos that we're here in Florida talking about the nation, because if we can organize, if you can organize this state under your association and get involved, you could lead the way to getting sponsors for this bill single-handedly. Go ahead, David.
Thank you, Michael. So first, a quick recap, and we've had guests here before, and one of the messages that's important for everybody to understand is that the history of the profession, how and why it was that it came to be, the infrastructure that was developed and the institutions that were created are required of any kind of a system of medicine like ours. You're not going to make any headway, whether it's professionally, politically, or on any front, without keystone organizations that can answer the difficult questions on the federal level, on the state level, to make a cogent argument about why it is that what we do is safe and effective and worthwhile being in the public space. And so if I can have a round of applause real quick, we have tremendous infrastructure in our profession. We have it on the national level. They've done the things that they promised to do, and they've brought a practice act over the last 40 years gently across this land of ours with 3 exclusions. And we'll get to how we deal with helping those states at another time. But to Michael's question, and some of the comments earlier, we're talking about Medicare in the context of the 50 million people that are riding on that train. And as much as we think that we're in a system of, private capitalism and, go it alone, how do we pay for healthcare in this country? Literally, in your own family, look into your own parents, you look into your neighbors. Insurance is how healthcare is paid for. And either you're in that scheme in an effective way or you're out of that scheme. And we're familiar with the latter. Okay, we've been struggling and struggling. We've had some advances and setbacks along the way. But the CMS opportunity for, again, us as a profession, but more importantly, the millions and tens of millions of people who need access to affordable health care, including acupuncture, that train is rolling. And we've said it as nicely as we can in different ways about who's going to take the caboose and who's going to take the locomotive and who's going to ride in the middle. if we expect to be on that train, and it may not be our practice, it was said earlier, Marilyn, you said it, you can opt out if you don't like it. So all we're asking in that case is stand aside, contribute if you must, but if it's not for you, nobody's going to force you into that position. The challenge is for the 6,500 students that are in school who don't have the resources, who are going to be compounded with the debt. They need a job, and there are patients that need their help. And so how do we bring those two people together in a system that pays for healthcare with what? Insurance. And in an aging population, more and more of those people are going to use what? Medicare, Medicaid. So if we're not in that system somehow recognized as a provider, then those people are not going to get the care they need. The sickness program that was described at the beginning is going to be perpetuated, and we're going to fail miserably. So organization and structure is important. We have federal, we have state people that we know and we can trust and we rely upon. Last night we had a board meeting, 9 people. We do a lot of pulling of weight to try to service the needs of the Florida profession. But the truth of it is, each one of us in the room has a small but unbelievably important role to play. And if we can encourage you to just participate a little bit, this load will be so much lighter. If not for you, for one of those 6,500 kids or adults who's working on a new career, who's going to be buried in debt with eyes wide open, looking for an opportunity to heal people. And there's going to be forever that disconnect between them and their patients, because patients are going to turn toward the insurance reimbursement schemes that are available to them. Okay, and if we're not part of that solution, then we're on thin ice, as Marilyn described earlier, and it's so unnecessary. We have the tools and we have the wherewithal to do it. To Michael's point about Florida and why it's so important, why retirees, they come from all around the country. We have the oldest demographic, largely probably in the state. Who makes laws happen? Who gets people elected? Seniors do. Okay, the largest block of voters by far, senior citizens. Their interests are held highest above all others. We're in the business of serving them their healthcare needs, and they're not confused about how to get what they need as a voting block. AARP is very active. There's lots of social organizations that represent seniors, and they get what they want because they know how to lobby for themselves. They make sure that their issues are in front of legislators, and something as important as the expense and the outcome of healthcare is top of mind for them. And if they need access to acupuncture to reduce their dependency on medications, to increase their ability to their activities of daily living, including golfing and sports and other things, all the things that make them happy and joyful at a lower expense and more accessible, they are behind us. I'm a relatively small practitioner, 10 years in practice, probably at 5,000 patients or something like this. Everybody in the room has got file cabinets full of records they've been keeping forever. We have busy practices in Florida with lots of people who can pick up a phone. They can lobby on the behalf, if they understand, if that they were able to make the argument to their local congressional representative that if acupuncture was a recognized provider type under the Social Security Act, that their care would be accessible and affordable. They could enjoy a higher quality of life with less expense. There's lots of people on our team. We just have to do a little bit more than we're doing now. The board's working very hard. We've got outside help, expertise, but in the end, what we're asking is, preaching to my own choir here. You guys make the effort to come, you support the organization, the association, but what we need is for you to leave this meeting tonight thinking about, what can I do? We're going to give you a little bit of a roadmap, script, how to reach out and talk to people that are elected officials in your area to make sure that they're aware that there's active legislation that's important to their constituents, seniors, reducing healthcare costs. All of this can be done relatively simply. Getting your patients engaged is just a multiplier, because they're going to benefit enormously from that. And you're a conduit to helping them get what they really want, which is better living at less expense. Doing it with us. Okay, and so because it's 18 million or 20 million people in Florida now, we're going to gain a member of the House of Representatives. We've got lots of elected officials, more than 100, I think, here in Florida that travel to Washington in from every district. And our job at this point is to say, look, we need co-signers and we need people to be paying attention to legislation that's pending from Judy Chu. There are additional co-signers, but this is simply about including licensed acupuncturists in the Practice Act for Medicare so that you have reimbursement opportunities and your patients have direct access to you. Okay. And so we're going to continue to work as an organization to make sure that it's really clear, maybe a separate web page. I know Jennifer just shared contact information. Everybody's giving you details. You're sitting and trying to take this all in, but we're going to work really hard to thread that needle, give you those details in a granular way so you know what to do next. And then you can report back to us. I'm having difficulty. I'm having success. I could use some help. You know, this is what to expect. We want to partner with the providers on behalf of their patients and see this traction, you know, something move forward that's going to kickstart an opportunity for us to have a national standard for licensed acupuncturists and guarantee that we don't keep getting elbowed in the ribs by people that are passing us with ease. Okay.
We tried to get at the table for Obamacare. Some of you know this. We tried. We failed. We failed to get it to the table. The Medicare market, I'm surprised none of you are concerned. How close is this? Last time I was in Florida speaking to you, I don't know, 5 years ago, we spent 1/6 of every dollar on healthcare. Now it's 1/5. How close are we to Medicare for all? I mean, what's the market for Medicare now? What if we go to Medicare for all? What's the market then? Again, get at the table, be at the table, then you're going to have dog fights for your rates because they're really low. And you know who complains about their rates? Every single medical professional. Some doctors have been cut 50% on their rates. Don't tell me about rates. For a patient who's giving you $0, if they are offering you $1, that's an opportunity for $1. That's all it is. But how dare you tell someone else they can't take that dollar because you don't want to take that dollar? Because that's exactly what's happening in your profession. Cannibalism. And it needs to stop. And it can stop. And this is resolvable and redressable. And David said, you know, at least get out of the way. No, your obligation is for your profession to endure. That's part of your professional obligation. That's why you have associations, not just to make you more money. Expanding the pie. We've only got about a half hour left. There's a lot of very specific questions there. I gave them to the folks here that were of general nature. Nell can come around. Is there anyone who wants to share something pertinent out loud with us here? Nell, you can start us off too. Go ahead. We got some over there.
Yeah, and tons of question on reimbursement, which Michael kind of just hit, and more of an order of operations than anything else. You have a question?
Thank you, everyone. So we've all heard the question on the phone or when we meet someone, do you accept insurance? And one day it clicked. It's not always, do you accept insurance so that they can pay for my service? It's, do you accept insurance? Are you qualified to be my doctor? So if you can say, I can accept insurance, I'm not a witch doctor, I'm a qualified practitioner, that could make a big difference for us. And totally agree with everything that's been said tonight. So thank you.
I think that was a great summary. Anyone else from the audience before we start?
Hi, my name is Rhoda. I just wanted to speak to the infrastructure question or the issue of infrastructure. I'll speak slowly so I won't get tongue-tied. I have a friend who's a chiropractor, and I was telling him how I of course learned this information from FSOMA, which is the chiropractors have 300 people lobbying, and I always ask that question. You know how many we have? We have one, and of course everybody goes, wow. And that's why we're not making it and blah, 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 blah. However, one of the things he's told me, and I think I've asked one of you about this before, is when they first become a student, one of the things that's in their application is a requirement to become a part of their board or a part of the association. And that's a few $100s, but the point is it's in their tuition and they pay for it like outright. So they already have invested in it and they continue this when they graduate. And from what I understand, I think the answer to me was, well, we can't do that because it's illegal or something. But why is it that they can do it and we can't do it? Now, I'm not picking on the students and saying, they should pay, but why not start, as students where they can contribute? Only because I think once we get into that momentum, they can just continue to support.
Marilyn, do you want to take that or you want me to take it?
Either one. In Arizona, we have a school in Phoenix, and this year, the owner of the school paid for the membership for every one of her 137 students. So that increased the professional association by 137 members. Now, in California, there are 2 schools that I believe, you can correct me on this now, or you can say it, that pay for student membership.
There's 2 schools, SCUHS and Empress College. In California, there's multiple associations. So that's been a conversation as well among the schools. What I tell students is I would encourage your administration to join the state association because it is few and far between schools who do pay for their students to join. Most associations have very affordable student rates and often will discount that for a school to have their members join as well. $25 for students in Florida. So those few of you here, make sure you join. We had a point of clarification, Marilyn, about needing a code to pay us. Can you just elaborate a little bit about how we use coding differently in this country versus others?
The diagnostic codes in this country, ICD, International Classification of Disease Codes, started in 1854. Again, just to count people who die, count people who have other diseases. Now, and when they started, there were only like 34 codes. We now have something like 6,000 codes. Everything is going to be very granular in the new ICD 11 codes. You're going to have what they call a code string. You will have more than one diagnosis because it's a miracle. The medical doctors have figured out that the body is attached together. No, I understand you laugh, but it happened when I was sitting in a meeting for quality of care and patient safety. They said, well, it can't just be a shoulder code. It might, go up to the neck or down into the elbow. And the doctors laughed, and all of a sudden that's what it is. You're also going to be required to put a safety code in. So you still can use the ICD-11 codes when they come out, but right now you'll be using ICD-10. I hope this is answering the question. What we want to do is educate the insurance companies by learning how to do it, adding them in, so we begin to teach the insurance companies what we do. They don't have any idea what we do. Okay. Okay. The confusion might be that we are paid for a CPT owned by the American Medical Association, current procedurals, but you have to do your procedure, your CPT code relates back to what? Your diagnosis code. You have to have both codes when you bill. Okay,
People, yeah, a couple people who are waiting on questions, and then I can come to you. Oh, that question? Okay.
We are not in the directory for payment. This is the reason we need the Medicare. Okay, that's what no one understands.
So
Let's let Mina have.
we
that one.
have to open up the social security. Yes, absolutely. So the question was that explain how we will be able to be paid, because right now we're not part of the insurance or payer system. How do we do that? And that does start with Medicare. So we have to open up the Social Security Act so that we can become full Medicare providers. So go back to January 2020, when CMS made a decision that acupuncturists can be reimbursed for chronic low back pain. However, there were limitations. There was a supervision limitation, right? Obviously, it's only looking at chronic low back pain. So what we're trying to do, what HR 4803 is trying to do, is that it's trying to open up the Social Security Act so that all qualified acupuncturists, licensed acupuncturists, can become Medicare providers, right? For everything. So once that happens, that will also, insurance companies will follow, and we'll be able to go ahead and establish ourselves. And then we have to work with CMS. So a lot of you ask about payment, then that process of sitting down and negotiating reimbursement will happen directly with CMS.
There's nothing else in the bill. It's this
Yes.
big. We're opening up this much just to add you, close it back.
Yeah.
Just this much, we can close
Right.
it back up. That's all. Nothing complicated, nothing complex like the previous iterations of the bill had.
Yes.
This is clean, it's crisp, gets you in and you're done. Now you're at the table. Now you're in the system. Now it's incumbent upon you to take it to the next level and talk about rates and education and get the research and so on and so forth. Now, where are you? I lost you. Oh, there you are. Go ahead.
This is kind of a complicated question.
Okay. And the answer is kind of the challenge with diagnosing, not diagnosing. How are we coding if we're not diagnosing in the same way that Western medical professionals are? They're coding for underlying disease as well. And that's not necessarily something that we can do. So how is this going to look different, Marilyn?
yes, you code for symptoms. WHO is going to ask that you double code. There will be a Western code. Number one, a TM disease or disorder, and pattern differentiation. The reason for this is because ultimately WHO is going to integrate your codes, your language into the West. They want to know, how do these codes go together? So that gives you more strength and more power. You have one thing that sets you apart from any other group that is trying to creep into your scope, and that is your pattern differentiation. Nobody else knows that. Now, WHO at the last meeting of the General Assembly, and I'll say this quickly, the head of it said two things. Number one, I don't care whether you treat with Western medicine or Eastern medicine. You're all going to have to get into technology because the world is being run by technology. That's the first thing. The second thing he said is, don't care whether you treat Western or Eastern, you're going to have to increase your communication to your patients. You now, and I don't know whether I'm sure some of you know this, we have a new federal law. It's nicknamed No Surprises. You are required to have an individual consultation about each patient, about their finances and how they're going to pay their bill. You are required to give them a good faith estimate of how much your treatment plan is going to cost. and you have a $400 margin because so many patients do not know what healthcare costs and they get greeted with this bill at the end. The government said, no, no, that's not going to happen anymore. So you have to talk to your patient about money. And document.
So I have a question up here, and again, let's summarize this, and I'm going to take this one. There's a million associations in so many states. How do we come together as one? Right now, this is the best we're looking at. Having the ASA as a bottom-up organization where states have the option to join. They do. They get to choose. They get to choose who their representatives are. They get an equal vote at the table in making decisions at a national level. And yet then their members are given that membership in ASA. If you're a member of your state association who is a member of ASA, it is not all 50 states for NCCOM. That is what we are working towards. It is not all 50 states where there is a practice act. That is what we are working towards. So no, the system is nowhere near complete and not perfect. That's why we need all of you here. And it is a challenge to decide, where am I putting my energy? But this is the infrastructure that we have set at this moment.
But I'm not willing to wait for state associations to all fill in the map. This is a cause. It's not an organization, it's a cause. All of you can get involved in this cause, regardless of what state association, political party that Marilyn said. This is a cause. The cause is 3 sentences long. That's it. That's the cause. We cannot wait for more organization. We have the infrastructure to get it done. The resources are there to get it done. We can't sit back and say, we need to organize. Nope, sign up, do a text. Jennifer, can't they text their support right now? Here you go, take the mic.
If you're an acupuncturist, you can open up your phone right now. You can text the word acupuncture to 52886.
Do it, do it.
I'll repeat that. Grab out your phone if you'd like. You're going to text the word acupuncture to 52886. It is 52.
Get your phone, everybody.
Get your phone out.
Come on, pull out the phone. We can do something.
Okay, it is 52886. When you hit send on that, it's going to send you back a link. I promise you it's a safe link. It's us. It's our free advocacy tool. Once you open up that link, you're going to put in your address, your full address. Which address? Your home address, because your home address is how you vote. But if you also own your own practice and you're a small business owner and that's in a different address, you could put that too to find out who your rep is there. You vote in your home district based on your home address. So that's where you're a constituent, but where your business is, you serve those constituents. So you also have a good voice in that as well, if you're interested, but you do your home address first. You text the word acupuncture.
He's got it.
Awesome. If anybody who needs help, find me. We'll do it
Is
together.
this just for the profession,
Not
Jen?
just for the profession. So glad you asked, Michael.
There you
It
go.
is
That's why
for
I'm here.
so many different people. And the difference is you're always texting to the same number, always 52886, but you're going to text the word that you will choose will differ. So if your patients want to do this, they will put in their acupuncture patient. If your friends or family want to do it, there's another word there. You'll find all of this on our website. And if you find me later this weekend, I'll show you where you can find it also in a printout form. So we'll make it easy on you, but this is preloaded with templates. So once you get registered, you are now going to have the option to send a letter that you can customize, add in all of your contact information directly to your representatives in support of HR 4803. And your patients can do the same.
We can definitely, yeah, we've had some tech issues and we'll work with everyone individually to make sure we can get it through.
By the way, your patients will all do this for you. Every single one of them who walks into your office that you ask them to do, they understand that they can get they can get access to your medicine through reimbursement as they age, or perhaps now they're paying out of pocket for. They're all going to support that. That's the infrastructure that's in place. Now, you didn't need the association. You didn't need to have disagreements about the doctorate. You just text acupuncture and you supported the bill. That's all you just did. Think about doing that 1,000 times over between now and January when the bill gets reintroduced. And what kind of momentum. And then think about your patients also doing that for you every single time they come to your office. The power of that representation. They're more important than you, by the way. The more they support your bill, the better it will be.
Yeah, I just want to add, when you're talking to members of Congress, when our lobbyists and ASA and when we're in the halls of Congress, they want to hear from your patients more than anything else, particularly veterans, because there's two bipartisan issues that every single member of Congress, whether they're Republican or Democrat, independent, care about. One is veterans and one is the opioid crisis, because they're all being affected by that. So we need to make sure that we're getting our patients ready. ASA has put together a patient testimonial form. Jen, we can send out more information from Jen and Nell to be able to collect that patient testimony. That's going to be very powerful to be able to provide to members of Congress.
We're also planning our next conference, which will also include our Hill Day. That is going to be May 13th. 2023. It's going to be a joint effort. So ASA is going to hold their conference. ASA and CCOM and Molly Gianmarco, who is our federal lobbyist, will be accompanying us. We will be setting up meetings for each and every one of you who want to go. We will accompany you to those meetings if you would like. We will train you for those meetings beforehand. So we will have hopefully hundreds of licensed acupuncturists on the Hill, ready to talk, whatever our new bill number is at that point.
I just want to add quickly, and I'll just bring this back for a second. You know, the profession has been moving along in a particular direction, you know, just to better or worse for about 40 years. And I think with the conversation we're having tonight, and we've had some discussion around this before, is that there is a bend in the road and it is in front of us. And it's because healthcare, you know, life is about change. Healthcare changes. The way we do things change over time. Ask the guy that made, you know, four-wheel buggies, you know, how that worked out. Okay. Life changes. And so after, you know, 4 or so decades that we've able to build a medicine, drive a demand, build our practices, but there's a flashing light here. And it's not that the road's going to come to an end. You know, everybody's going to find their own way, but there is definitely a serious curve in the road. And it's because I started my comments before, conditioning of people to rely upon their healthcare services being paid by private or public insurance. You know, the market of people who are going to be paying for healthcare services privately, that pool is going to continue to shrink, and there's going to be greater economic forces that demand that. And so when that road bends, the discussion we're having tonight is saying we know where the road leads. We just want to make sure that we're on it on the far side of that turn. And so every little thing we can do to plot our course forward that keeps us in the middle of that bending road, the better for our patients, the better for our society, and certainly the better for us. Okay, it's about 7:45, and I'm glad we're getting the questions that we are. So I'm going to hand the microphone back, and let's continue with any questions in the room, questions that we have online. And then at about 8 o'clock, I have some concluding comments just to thank our board of directors and recognize our vendors. So hang with us for a few more minutes, okay?
Florida specific question for you about PIP. What is the current status for acupuncturists?
what I would say is the PIP law that was passed about 10 years ago, it's unchanged. And the only discussion in Florida about PIP now is whether or not the legislature does away with the entire PIP system and goes to a no fault program. Yeah, I'm sorry. If it's not no fault, bodily injury, I'm sorry. It's the tort program where injuries are managed through attorneys' offices who arrange for healthcare services. So that's the modern discussion about.
That always works out
Yeah.
swimmingly. We'll take care of it. Trust us. Trust us to the medicine. We got it.
Michael's got needles in his back pocket.
Yeah, we got it.
So to somebody's question, there's no change from, this question of PIP in the last discussions I had with legislators was that the legislature as a body is unhappy, or the state and the insurance agencies are unhappy with the PIP program and how it's worked out. So they're contemplating ways to do away with PIP in favor of another system. In other states, we see bodily injury, and that's typically what the discussion is now here in Florida. It'll require an act through the legislature and some major changes through the insurance commission, but that's the direction it's going in.
Questions? All right. I'm coming back. Is it for the whole room?
I don't know how important this is, but I'm dual licensed. I have a chiro license, acupuncture license. We've been in Medicare with chiropractic, I believe, since the early 70s. We're covered for spinal manipulation only.
Yeah.
Not traction, not ultrasound, not laser, not stim, not all the other things that we're licensed to do. So we have a bill now somewhere in Washington that might cover us for modalities. So I'm saying on the acupuncture side, to get into it, you never know how it's going to wind up. Will it just be needling, or will it be electrical acupuncture, or will it be cupping also? Will it be herbs? Will it be gua sha? Anything else that you might do in your scope? So I just raised that point because when the door is open, you want to make sure you get all your stuff in there.
100%.
See, and that's one point. And then the other point is the Medicare replacement policies have their own rules. So although they follow Medicare, you have to get a pre-authorization, you have to get permission, you have to submit notes, you have to do all these other things during your lunch break. And so it's the right can to open, but it is a little bit of a can of worms. So I just mentioned that.
That's the balance. Thank you very much. That's the discussion we were having. It's the balance of saying, the providing access, or imagine chiropractic medicine not having or imagine the country and the 50 million people that you serve not having access to chiropractic care, and where chiropractic medicine would be in the last 40 years. It's so ours is, we're at the first step of a negotiation. The first is you get included in the Medicare Provider Act, and then we got to go to CMS and make some hash, find out, is this a single modality? Is it adjunctive therapies as well? And so we have experienced people who are going to be having those conversations, and it's going to be an ongoing dialogue because you roll the ball uphill. And like Michael was saying earlier, physicians have gone through Medicare cuts every year for 20 years, and the same fees that used to be, we saw that in chiropractic as well. And so the ball goes up the hill, they come up with a dollar rate and certain things they'll cover, then they want to start cutting back and they cut. It'll eventually be a market-driven situation where it'll go too low. Now they've got trouble with provider networks. People are complaining, they're issuing new bills, and then the ball get pushed back up the hill and say, I guess we got to spend some more money to satisfy, all these, patients and practitioners. So when the time comes, first things first, you get in the bill, then we decide how many of these tools in our toolbox are available to us.
I'm not against the chiros either. They pay me. It's a big difference between them and the acupuncturist when I help them. But I will tell you that I charge them. I will tell you this though, You know, the chiros are the original moving the ball up the hill climb in modern America, carving out their medicine. Is a lot to learn from what they accomplished in that way. And again, you know, the point here is anyone who you have a dual license, so you're in a different category, but you know, people need you, not MDs, not podiatrists, not PTs, not athletic trainers, not chiros or anyone else disguised as you. They need your unique clinical holistic health expertise. That's what this is about, bringing that to the table. And everyone else can have their modalities at the table. I put my money on the acupuncturist every single time because you proved it to me. When the patients come to you, they stay. You've proved that over. That's why you're here. Because your patients are loyal to you, not the medicine, to the acupuncturist. I'll put your medicine up against their medicine any day of the week. You'll come out on top.
The medical, you could have repeated it. I work with a medical doctor and a nurse practitioner. We've been billing Medicare for 1.5 years. It is not hard. We get paid. We haven't had a single problem. Yes.
Class.
All you need to know is ethical billing, ethical treatment, ICD, CPT, good notes, and you're paid. We haven't had a single
class.
Single problem.
Teach them. Yeah.
I think we have some of that covered this weekend.
For Dr. Glenn, we care about podiatrists. Don't worry about it. Thank you, sir.
All right, we can wrap it up. Go ahead now.
Yeah, just want to say to Amy's point, we have a lot of those resources in this room right now. It's not just up here on the stage. You have people teaching courses, we have booths across the hall for these very resources to help you all be successful with these very things. So part of this collaboration beyond the General Assembly is to leverage those resources, whether it be your state association, the vendors across the hall, the people who are teaching these courses. We have subject matter experts in this room who can speak to their experiences and get this done.
We'll all be around today and tomorrow. Come up and ask us questions. I always say, if we can't answer, we have pretty good networks out there. And there are no stupid questions. So ask, think about this, get on fire, get on the train, because we need you. Oh, don't forget money.
We know we didn't get to everyone, so please come and find us.
And I ask
Have us
everybody, just
some
hang on for a
questions.
second because we have some things from the board for FSOMA just for a couple minutes. But I wanted to give our presenters an opportunity to have their closing remarks.
Thank you for having me. I'm going back to my couch unless you prove that you got your act together.
Do me a favor, we can't sign out just yet. This is a 2.5-hour CEU.
Yeah.
So just announcing to the room, that we want us to hold on if we're taking credit.
But if you keep moving this ball forward, like I know you can, like you've done before, Marilyn can get me off my couch and I'll stand behind you on it. Deal?
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. So from FSOMA, I just wanted to do a couple of things and recognize the board and board members that are with us tonight. They work all year long and you should know who your board members are. So can I invite the FSOMA Board of Directors to give a stand just for a second? The Board of Directors for FSOMA. How about our past president, Sandra Khan? Thank you, guys. So certainly this weekend was a very public display of everybody's efforts, but this is really month after month, we all have committee work and things that we do on behalf of the profession, and it all comes together when we get to see each other at the end of the year. I have a couple of slides. I just want to recognize our gold sponsors, because they were on the stage tonight, is AAC with the NCCAOM. And we want to thank Bob Schlitt as well. Thank you, guys. All right, so the board, we know I had everybody stand, but I just want to recognize Gretchen Lawrenson, Joshua Jackson, Rafael Perez is our treasurer, Teresa Gilmore, Demita Hartz, Dan Litwin, Galena Rufner, April Wong, and Dicky Walls. Thanks again. So a quick round of applause for the group. Let me take another slide. I think it's important, and the board recognizes this, but each and every one of us as a practitioner, that we stand on the shoulders of people who have come before us. And I just remind us of the curve in the road. The things that we're discussing tonight, although they may not be specifically beneficial for us, there are colleagues coming, people in the future that we know are studying hard now that want to provide care and services for people. And we want to create the best environment for them to succeed and share our medicine, share their passion. And we stand on giant shoulders, and we want to let them stand on ours. So it's time for us to do our part. Is this? I'm so sorry. Is that a question? Thank you. So we'll have them in. If there's anybody that has questions, written or oral, the AAC reps and NCCAOM, they're available to us for the rest of the weekend. Okay. I'm sorry. I got a picture of them right there. We want a special thanks, and please, a round of applause, everybody in the room. Dr. Amy Sear, okay, goes above and beyond year after year. And when I talk about shoulders that we stand on, certainly from an organizational standpoint, anybody that does the work that I've done, the work that the board's done, recognizes Amy's efforts that are decades old. We're still benefiting from her lessons learned and her willingness to pass that knowledge to us. Thank you so much, Amy. Gold sponsors, we know who they are. This is AAC, NCCAOM. They're going to be around for the rest of the weekend and visit with Bob Schlitt. Part of our success every year really has to do with the sponsorship that we get from people, outside the state that come here, that provide knowledge and services for us, financial support as well. We can't be more thankful. And I know we're giving rounds of applause, but one more time for our presenters, please. Marilyn. Michael. Are we starting? Thank you, guys. Next slide. Thanks, guys. One more time. And we're kind of our green jade sponsors. We had Microbiome. Thank you very much. You guys had the morning symposium with them. It's coming next year. I apologize, but we're grateful for their sponsorship every year because they do, provide a great service. Thanks very much. And sorry, Lazo OMS, of course, was in a tomorrow morning. But again, year after year, we can't, we're grateful for their support. We want to recognize them when you're here and have an opportunity to visit in the exhibit hall. Stop by and thank them for their support. They have gifts and specials and prizes for us. Just check yes, we agreed to everything. So everybody, I hope you enjoyed the General Assembly. The conference has gotten off to a tremendous start. Okay, I think, we've been through a little bit of a difficult spell with trying to figure out if we do things in person or we do things remotely. We had, a very successful turnout. The exhibitors are really blown away by everybody's attention and their excitement for the event. It really makes for a great creative weekend and an opportunity for us to coalesce as a profession and friends. Thank you very much for coming. Who's- If it's running, my final recognition is going to go to Gretchen Lawrenson, who is our virtual guru. We survived day one. Anyway, it's a brilliant effort and a great job done by all. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I put it right there on the desk, so. Excuse me.
I know you first hand, but I'm gonna have to eat those up for the night. I already took the other two. You want this? Okay, so this. And here's one. Okay, I'll try to find. We are.